Morning, guys, and welcome back to the M&M update on the Natty scene with your two perfectly combined co-hosts, or hosts, whatever you want to call us. Anyway, you know who we are, AJ and Vic. And today we are going to run through a load of stuff, which is going to be nice and short because we know that you don't like cardio in the off season, so you tend to switch off after 35 minutes. So quick update from the big M. Mr. Morris, how has your week been?
Yeah, hey guys. So like Vicky says, we noticed that sort of you kind of like the bit shorter episodes as opposed to 45-50 minutes. So we're going to try and keep every update around about 30 to 35 minutes for like cardio or the step listening. So, yeah, my week was very interesting. After we got off the podcast on Friday last week, I got hit by the plague. So I spent Friday... It's so funny. I was like... on Friday, I was like, fuck. Like, I am ill. And so, obviously, the way to combat that was to travel up to Crayford and train legs. So I did my sort of first set of deadlift and then felt like I'd been... my throat felt horrendous. So then obviously finished the rest of the leg session and took PBs on everything else.
Why the hell not?
And then after that I was on the way home in the car eating plenty of carbohydrates and also feeling very hot, very cold, in shivers, and I knew that I'd reached a point of no return on that illness. So I then took Saturday off, which was meant to be a training day, shock horror. And then I took Sunday off, which is normally a rest day anyway. I also then took Monday off because I was ruined. So 3 days in a row off.
Science will dictate that you've lost all of your gains in those 3 days.
I did lose a lot of tissue in 3 days.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was that, which is not very fun at all. So anyone that has that sort of flu bug, I feel for you because it wipes you out. It gives you no energy and it makes you feel like garbage. So that wasn't fun. But Tuesday got back into the gym. Started with push. I'm now on a new setup in terms of my split. So essentially I'm like 3 on, 1 off, 2 on, 1 off. So essentially the way that I set that up is push, legs, pull, rest, off. Rest off, fucking hell.
Rest off.
Rest. two separate things. Rest and then lower upper.
Cool.
So still hitting things or body parts at least 2 times per week. Arms get hit a little bit more frequently purely because I tag them at the end of some other sessions because they're so weak they need to come up. But yeah, that was my week. So a little bit of a change of things and just appreciating recovery curves a little bit more. Me and Vicky are talking about it like as we're pushing up our numbers in the gym, we're finding that our recovery, not necessarily from a soreness perspective, but just feeling that systemic fatigue. So just feeling like you're tired, feeling like you're not getting enough sleep, even when you are getting good sleep. You know, all these signs of basically trying to force your body to adapt are coming in. And you don't really get that when you're dieting. You get into a great routine of sleep, you know, meals, etc., which we're still in at the moment. But you get into that routine, you combine that with trying to maintain training volume, and you kind of can just trick over and not have any issues with regards to fatigue levels. But you've got to notice these things when you're gaining because you got to think of each session as like trying to maximize it, not just trying to like, okay, I want to train 6 days a week. I'll train 6 days a week for the hell of it. You know, you'd rather train 5 days a week and make those 5 days absolutely perfect as opposed to making 6 days, you know, just like ticking the boxes with 6 days of training. So that's me. I did lose a little bit of weight from being ill, but slowly gaining that back now. It didn't really rob me of my appetite too much. It just, I just couldn't really feasibly force the food down my mouth, which I would do on a training day when I couldn't breathe out my nose. It just made me feel like shit when I was eating. So I just basically, I ate a little bit less. But evidently not enough.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was me. And how was your week?
Yeah, this week has been good. There has been a couple of things that have cropped up, like the whole tiredness thing, and my bloating that I've been getting this week has just been, for use of a better word, it has been shit. To the point where, you know, I'm actually looking about 6 months pregnant. It was awful, wasn't it?
Yeah, you sent me a photo.
I sent you a photo. It was just absolutely awful. And I've got this nice, really tiny kind of, well, abdomen, I suppose, and then this massive bloat that just kind of appears from nowhere, but I have no idea what it actually is and what's causing it. So to the point where I've arranged to have a doctor's appointment after this podcast, actually. So hopefully I'll get some kind of referral to see what goes on with that. Now, the one thing that I want people to take from here is that if you do have some bloating is not normal. Right, your stomach should be realistically flat throughout the entire day, unless obviously you have like a huge volume of food, and then you get a food baby thing going on.
Something out of the norm.
Yeah, but if you have this extended bloating, and the way that I would describe having bloating rather than a food baby is that you would still have visible abs if you're lean, and you bloat. Whereas on the food baby thing, your abs tend to disappear. I don't know what the difference is with that or why it happens, but that's how I can tell that I've got bloat or I've just eaten a lot of food. So just be aware of that. If you do bloat, it's not normal. So go and get it checked out, especially if you're uncomfortable or you're constipated or stuff like that, But other than that, training has been really, really good. I have stuck to my goal of increasing my overhead press every single week. So this week I did it by 2.5 kilos and I just missed my 8th rep. So my rep range was between 6 and 8. Last week I got 35 kilos for a solid 8 and it was an easy 8. This week I did 37.5 for a solid 7 and basically muscle failure at that, trying to do the last 8th rep. So I was a bit pissed with that. However, it worked really well, so I was very, very pleased. And my subsequent down sets were all 35 kilos for 8s and 9s. So I was very, very happy with that. Awesome. So training is going very, very well. You'd also probably see from my Instagram, I went out for dinner with my little boy for his birthday, which was fairly epic. And one thing that I did notice, and I spoke to you about as well, AJ, again, is that even though I've been out of my competing phase since October, I still do not have that off button with my ghrelin levels. They're still messed up.
Very honest person you are.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's if you just kind of go, oh yeah, it was great, and I had this, and then I was fine. No, I'm not gonna kid a kid. Absolutely, I'm not gonna kid a kidder. We are all about honesty on this podcast. At the end of the day, I had a starter, I was fine. I had my burger, I was fine, and then I was hungry, and the guys wanted pudding, so I had a pudding, which I did not plan into my macros at all. But there was American pecan pie on the menu, and I am a sucker for pecan pie because it's incredible. So I had that, and then, there was no kind of off switch because, don't get me wrong, I didn't go out and binge because I knew that I didn't want to do that, but my brain and my body was there saying, no, you want to eat. And the kids were all there going, oh my God, I'm in a food coma, and Scott was in a food coma, really struggling, and I'm like, no, I can eat all of that again, very, very simply. So just because you have been in a quote-unquote gaining phase or a surplus for a few months, it doesn't mean that your hormone levels are reset properly. Oh, dear God. AJ just nearly kicked himself in the face with the microphone. That was actually quite funny.
Christ.
But I know, it was
fucking dangerous, this thing.
The shock factor of me eating all this food and still wanting more food, that's what it was. But anyway, so I don't expect your hormonal levels to be at a perfect, they're not going to bounce back immediately, even if you are at a big surplus. I'm on nearly 3,000 calories now daily because I have linear calories, and yet I'm still finding that I am hungry. And I know when I need to eat and I want to eat. And apparently when I go out for food, I want to overeat. So, don't beat yourself up if you're still feeling a bit hungry as well. But there you go. That's my anecdotal experience.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
So let's get on to today's subject based on that, actually. We're going to discuss something that's big in the media at the moment, which is anecdotal versus scientific principles in regards to bodybuilding and how we apply them and what we do. So AJ, why don't you start, dude?
Yeah, sure. So I think, when you look at different practitioners and different coaches, there was generally in the past like a divide between people who would take and apply the science, and they would almost be called like the science-based practitioners. The reality is that pretty much all coaches now, or at least all decent coaches, will understand the science. But the divide that I see now is that there's a large difference between people who just literally all they think is within this box of science, and that any anecdotal stuff that they see, they almost try to disregard it if it's not proven by the literature, which in a sense is fine. I'm sure that you can still coach like that and get great results, and obviously keep people safe and well as a result, because you're staying within the confines of scientific literature. But what you got to remember is that what a lot of the studies and the literature that's coming out hasn't really provided us with is really solid data on people that are actually in the sport, doing the sport over a long term periods. Of course, there's been studies done on bodybuilders, but there hasn't been a lot, because no one's going to fund that kind of shit. People are going to fund the stuff with the scientific literature is going to be funded by people who want to find out more about things that we potentially really want to prove for the general population. So it just makes things understandable. So things like creating caloric deficit to lose fat, that's something that's going to just stand in stone. There's not going to be something that comes out and sort of proves that wrong. So whilst, for example, the way that I coach, and Vicky's very similar, is that if I see something that is working with a client, or is working with me, or is working with someone else that's just literally just talking about why it's working, I'll be inclined to try that. I'll always be inclined to try it first with myself. And then if I think that it's applicable to a certain client, I'm going to apply it with that client. And I'm also going to do that in the gym when it comes to doing movements a specific way, or programming my training in a specific way. Because at the end of the day, there's not been a study done on me, and there's not been a study done on many professional bodybuilders, natural, enhanced, whatever, that tells you exactly how to train or exactly how to eat. And if there was, everyone would look pretty fucking similar on pretty fucking similar programs. Yeah. The anecdotal stuff is why things are individualized and why things work different for different people. That's why we have the power of anecdote and the power of, does this work? Okay, cool, let's do it more. So I just think the frustrating thing that really gets me is when people just they're not prepared to take this case study of who is big and who looks amazing, and what do? Instead, they look at, okay, Mr. Doctor has published this. Mr. Doctor must be right. I will do that and that only. And then when their physique doesn't grow or doesn't improve drastically, the second calling to that always seems to be fucking genetics. It's like, well, it's not the way that I train or eat or sleep. It's the fact that I just haven't got the genetics for the sport. Well,
I haven't got the insertion points.
Some of the best bodybuilders out there with crazy fucking physiques didn't have good genetics. But they did do something that you can look at as someone with poorer genetics, and you can think, what did that person with bad genetics do? Did they spend like years and years trying to devise the most optimal approach, or did they just work their absolute arse off? And 9 times out of 10, the people with really not so good genetics have really just worked their arse off, and that's what's taken them to where they need to be.
Big example of that, sorry to just jump in, I wanted to let people know, big example of that is Doug Miller. I mean, look at Doug Miller, Jesus Christ. When I first
he's a genetic freak. He's certainly got good genetics.
But do you know, if you listen to his interviews, he never actually had a good baseline of genetics from what he explains.
Yeah, but I'd say he's definitely not in the ballpark of someone who's got poor genetics.
No, absolutely.
He's someone that, he probably maybe didn't have like a great start point, potentially. He wasn't someone that just looked crazy muscular. But yeah, he certainly worked his ass off, but I think, you know, his ability to adapt and grow tissue, like, there's something out of this world there.
Yeah. I mean, he is crazy.
The crazy work ethic.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, likewise, if you said, you know, you listen to things that Doug said on podcasts, and then things that people have said about Doug is that when Doug was at his prime, he was absolutely obsessed. Like, Doug wouldn't go anywhere without a meal. Doug wouldn't ever miss a training session. Doug would never allow anything to get in his way. And actually, it actually made his lifestyle pretty shit when he was coming up as a pro bodybuilder, because he was talking about sort of like he wasn't able to have a social life. It was only until he met his now wife or fiance, or girlfriend, I'm not exactly sure their relationship, that he actually started having a life a little bit more and sort of settling down. But sometimes that's what it takes to get to the top. Is like, you sometimes got to be super selfish and put yourself first and tick your boxes like day in, day out, like Doug did. So, yeah. But I think, you know, examples of poor genetics might be someone that just, you know, started off with something really, really poor and then didn't adapt at all. So it's like they really had to work around things. Like, you know, John Meadows, as an enhanced athlete, he never had good genetics and he had to adapt everything that he did to, like, his training, his nutrition, because of his colon thing. He had to adapt so much to get to where he was, yet he still managed to turn pro. It took him until he was, like, you know, quite old. But he did it, and he did it through perseverance. And
he's still like that now. He's still like that now. He's just crazy.
For you, Vicky, like, when it comes to, like, setting up a client, right? So how much do you look into, like, from a training and nutrition perspective? Like, when you're setting them up, how much weight do you put in, like, the things that you've read from, like, scientific literature versus, okay, I've got a client who's this old, doing this job, etc., and I'll compare that to another client that's quite similar, and I'll see what works. Like, what do you sort of do when you take on board that person?
I tend to look at it as an individual person. I don't tend to kind of go, well, this person fits into this scientific box and therefore I'm going to give them this MRV, this amount of reps, this amount of weight, because it just doesn't work like that. I mean, what I would normally do is I would set them up on a, like, say, for example, I'll take an example of a client that I've just taken on. Okay. Well, it wasn't just taken on, but like last month or whatever. And she is coming up to 40.
Okay.
She's fairly slim.
Yep.
She's got a bad relationship with food to the point where she'll eat about 1,500 calories every day and then obviously have a bad day emotionally and then go and binge on some chocolate and blah, blah, blah. So it kind of sets her off a deficit, hence the reason why she's been maintaining.
Okay.
But she has this skinny fat look. So she's been going to the gym. She's been going through the motions, same plan, you know, day in, day out for four times a week and not progressing on anything, you know. Kind of people that you see 40 kilos on a leg press and just kind of doing 8 reps and, you know, going through the motion type thing.
Yes, yeah.
So what I do is I analyse her diet. That is the bit that I look into a scientific purpose, especially for women, for the simple fact that they are chronically low on certain minerals, vitamins, nutrients, and that kind of thing. And because I do have nutritional analysis software from when I did my certification, I will put that in and I will make suggestions on what they can include in their diet in order to optimize their hormones, you know, especially when we get to a certain age. So that, I suppose, would be the more scientific element of what I do.
Yes.
And that is individualized science.
Yeah.
When it comes to training, I will set them up based on their biomechanics when I've analyzed them and what they can and can't do. So, like, if they've got a lower back problem, for example, I won't put anything like, you know, a lot of lower back loading and things like that in it. But then every single week, I will get them to send me a video of their main lifts and get them to send me a rundown of what they personally feel has been working for them. Yeah. And then based on their measurements, their scale weight, and their pictures, I will then change things that's adapted to them based on my anecdotal experience.
100%.
So the lifts that I put in and put out or take out, for example, on a weekly basis may just be down to the fact that, okay, she's complaining of her knees caving inwards on this thing, but not on this particular thing. So based on my experience doing that particular exercise, I know that I need to change this or suggest a certain way about doing that. There's no scientific principle behind that at all. It's completely based on that person's makeup, how long their femurs are, whatever like that. And based on the fact that, well, I found that this works for me. You're about a similar build to me, obviously with different muscular structure. So based on that, I'm going to change this and change that, But I do tend to base it on the individual's perspective on their own training as well, but with my anecdotal experience.
Yes.
And if they come to me and they say, I've trained 4 days this week and I am absolutely beaten up to high heaven, then it's like, okay, so maybe you just can't recover from 4 days. Or maybe instead of doing 2 on, 1 off, 2 on, we need to do 1 on, 1 off, 1 on, 1 off, and see what your recovery is like on that side of things. So it's a lot of manipulation so we get the perfect plan for that particular client. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the science. I'm a bit of a geek. Yeah. But the amount that I study and the amount that I learn is probably tenfold what I actually put into my programming.
Sure.
Because I base it on the individual. There's only so much that science can dictate what the individual just will not respond to.
Yeah.
For me, keeping an RPE of 8 and keeping 2 reps in reserve will do fuck all. For me.
The thing that I don't like about that is just the psychological thought of keeping 2 reps in reserve. Now, that's not to say that I don't ever do something and I could have done 2 more. Because if I took everything to failure in the gym, I wouldn't be able to train even 5 days a week. Because the fatigue element and the danger and the injury risk would just be ridiculous. But of course, I have those sets where I don't put a number in my head. I just say I'm gonna go until I can't do another good rep, and that's as simple as it is. But the psychological element of thinking, this week is a 2 rep in reserve week.
I don't fathom it.
I legit hate that. I hate to train like that.
Well, that's like a deload.
Yeah, it is.
So you're basically training to deloading every week. And I personally don't. I mean, I can't do it. If somebody said to me, right, okay, you've done your 8 reps, put it down now. And I'm like, but I could get like 3 more.
No. I'd walk out of those sessions feeling like I have not maximized that session.
Yeah.
Yes, you've done work, but what work is it?
Yeah.
What quality of work is that? The issue again comes to what I mentioned in my post, which was yesterday or something. No, the day before. And it was like about, telling a young trainee to hit RPE 8s is really, really quite bad, I think, psychologically for that young trainee, because they're going to get used to trying to constantly manage their intensity and manage their fatigue. So much so that they don't understand what a hard set is. So they're always conscious that training should be something left, like there should be reps left, and they haven't yet to experience something that's where they've taken it to a point where they can't do any more but well. So there might even be on a younger trainee, like their RIR 2 or whatever, they might hit a point where they've already hit muscular fatigue before they stop their set, purely because they're doing reps that just are crap, because they don't understand what actual failure is, and they don't understand what leaving actual reps in the tank is. So I also don't get like how you'd analyze that as a coach, because if I was asking for a video from my client and I was like, you know, can I see your 2 reps in reserve squats? Like, how the fuck do I know that they had 2 reps left? Because they're just going to rack it after a rep that looks relatively easy, in my opinion. From what I've seen from the reps in reserve training is that it gets racked after a rep that looks like, I don't know, maybe you could have had 5 more. How the hell do you know? You have to be I think you have to have 5 years plus training experience to make that work. And
also it comes down to your perception of that rep in reserve, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Because do you know how to train hard?
Exactly. And do you know what 2 left in reserve actually feels like? It's like when I know that I've got about 2 left in the tank, I mean, I'll never leave them, but I know that I'm there going, okay, I've probably got about 2 left, so I'm going to push my fucking hardest to get my 2 out. That is my 2 left in reserve. But, you know, like if I use a leg press, for example, I've got my knees down by my ears and then I'm there saying, okay, this is going to be a fucking hard thing. And I'm really pushing my damnedest. I'm feeling it in my glute. I'm feeling it in my hamstring. My quads are screaming, but I'm still getting the full rep with full range.
Yeah.
Now, somebody else who hasn't got that mentality, I mean, I know I'm a bit of a freak, but somebody else who hasn't got that mentality might actually think, okay, this is good. I've got about 2 left, so I'll stop. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no shake. There's no kind of like, I mean, but that might be their perception. It might just be an easy rep and then logging it up, you know? Whereas for like me and you, that 8th rep out of the 10 for our 2 left in reserve or an RP8 might still be screaming and blowing out of our arse.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I know that I can still get 2 more.
Yeah. Agreed. So, you know, I think in principle, it could be an approach that would work well to manage fatigue and to keep people in check. But I just think that if you're applying that approach, you need to fucking damn well know that you know where the failure mark is, and you know that those 2 reps were going to be ball-busting reps if you had to take them. And I think that comes from initially just starting your training very, very basic and doing some sets where you do take things to muscular failure and having someone show you what it is. Because, you know, and I'm not sure if she'll listen, but I train with a bikini girl that's very clued up on her training. Very, very clued up. She knows how to program. She, you know, she trains with good structure. She trains with good intent. But I took her through a leg session and she's never, ever... She honestly said, she was like, I've never felt a set like that. She's never taken a set to full muscular failure ever before. And that was something that was done via changing a lot in terms of the way that she was initiating the movement. So getting her to really think about the movement and controlling it and making sure that everything was firing properly. So doing it well, execution. And then it was a case of telling her, you've got 2 more, when she thought she had none. So that is the difference. And she got up, it took her about a minute and a half to get out of the fucking hack squat. Yeah. Because she was so ruined.
Amazing.
But then she was like, I love that. And I was like, yes. And imagine doing that every single session for a year. You will turn pro. Like that's the difference, because she's already got crazy physique. It just shows you can get good results because she's got good genetics, and a really good work ethic. But you know, it's that, and I didn't even learn these things until probably in the last year. You know, it was just reevaluating my movements and thinking, am I doing this right? Am I doing this with intent? Am I punning in everything into this set? You know, I'd start questioning myself, and the reality was I really wasn't. I look back at some of my old training videos, and yes, I was strong, and I could move weight, but was I training with intent? And was I training with proper execution and taking things to muscular failure? No. I'd very rarely see a set that was performed perfectly with intent and great execution. Very rarely see that.
A good example that I can bring on. Yeah, I mean, a good example of what I can bring up that is when I came down and I had a training session with you.
Yeah.
I remember it was very, very cool actually, because it was like one of my favorite epic sessions ever that we had because, you know, the M&M, you know, trained together perfectly. And that's the reason why AJ is going to move in with me and we're going to train every day together to make every session epic. But we were actually doing a seated overhead press with dumbbells.
Yes.
And I remember AJ pushing it above his head, and I said, "Come on, you've got 2 more." And he didn't say anything. And then he pushed it. I said, "Come on, you've got 1 more." And he went, "Yeah, it's there." So he knew that was that 1 more. And we were in prep at that point as well. So it's not like we were pushing for progressive numbers. But it's like I knew that last rep was going to be your failure rep. And you knew that last rep was going to be your failure rep.
Yeah,
so,
got the eye.
You know, yeah, you know, so it was just that, and that was it. So I've had so many clients and trained with people before where I've gone, "Come on, you've got 2 more," and they've just racked it and gone, "No, I don't." And it's like, what the fuck are you doing? You know, you're just cutting yourself shy.
If someone signs up to train with me, that sounds so gay. If someone says they want to train with me and they did that, I'm never training with them again. Quite simple. I don't. Even if they text me after saying next week, I'd ignore the text.
Yeah.
Genuinely. That's absolutely, there's no chance of me training with them again. Because that, like, you can't expect to be motivated by someone like that. Of course, if they're a client, of course you're trained. I train so many general population people. It's so funny. Like, you know, they do like 10 reps in the tank and they just, fuck my leg.
Yeah. I can't walk.
On Bulgarian split squats, I had this one client that every time he'd do them, he'd put his leg up, do 2 reps and be like, cramp, done. No. I'd be like, no, mate, like, no. He never had cramp. He just hated the exercise. So eventually we took it out. But yeah,
so
I do think that, and this is why maybe, Vicky, like, we should run at some point. I'd love to. I'm sure you would too. Like a camp, like a 1-day camp where we just call it like how to train hard, and we just get people in, girls and guys, small group of people, and we say, you know, in this camp, this day camp, you are going to learn how to take things to muscular failure. We're not only going to take you through a session, but we're going to talk about what personally we feel mentally you have to tap into to get to this point of reaching failure and training really, really hard. Yeah. Like, I think that would be cool.
I think that'd be epic.
How many people would sign up for that?
I don't know. Drop us a DM, let us know.
Let us know, DM or Instagram us saying that you'd love to do that, and we'll start putting wheels in motion. Cool. Yeah. Right. Well, I think we should leave it there. And 1, let you get off to your appointment, and 2, let the listeners crack on with their day.
That's it. Absolutely. So, in terms of hoodies, be epic. And in terms of, that's it, screenshot. Are we ready, guys? 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Best time.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Love you lots. Same time, same place next week.
Cool, guys. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.